Hey readers, it's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. I have a reading goals update for you today. So I've been wanting to set my reading goals since the beginning of the year, but the kind of the end of the year, first part of the year started off a little bit rocky for me because I got that cruddy cold that I'm still kind of hanging on to a little bit of, but I have been thinking about it very diligently too, because what happens a lot of the time is that I create way too many goals and then I don't achieve them. I wanted to create something very intentional that was achievable as well as meaningful. So, the first, this kind of relates to this, but I put it in this little bookish notebook that I have. I actually got these at Barnes and Noble a while ago. There were three of them in a set, they were wrapped in plastic. I think they still carry them, at least in my Barnes and Noble, but for now, this is kind of my booktube journal, and I'll tell you a little bit more about why I say for now. So what I did was I made a spread today. I used some tickets, printable tickets that I have from my Crafty Babe crew membership. I'll link that in the comments below, but it's a designer that I followed that does some paper crafting, and she has a magazine that she puts out every other month, I think, and then she has some printables and things. So if you're a member, you get extra little goodies if you want them. So I have created little tickets because she did a tickets printable for January, and I've done some journaling about these goals. So my 2023 reading goals are as follows. There are 10 of them. And the journaling I did about it was about the why, because what's happened in the last couple of years, I just realized I didn't kind of underline this, and I might want to do that with some others. What's happened in the last couple of years is that I just popped them out because they seem like a good idea at the time. And then I don't really ground them in any sort of meaning for me or any sort of value for me. So that's why I have decided to limit them to 10. Like I think I had 15 or 20 last year. It was ridiculous. And then I'm also going to be focused on why they're important. And some of them are kind of already in progress because I knew one of them was a goal for me and I've already launched that. So that's good news. And then a couple others are going to happen fairly soon. So let's get started. All right, so the first goal for me is to read 52 books in 1 year. I always set a reading goal. I have read many more books than that in the past, and some of my goals have been 100, and and I've surpassed those. Every year is different for me, but the last couple of years, 52, one a week seems really reasonable and it seems really achievable, and it just is a good pace for me. And honestly, I can read more than 52 books, right? Nobody is holding me hostage in any way regarding this goal or any of these goals. And I think it just is it's a good cadence for me. It's a good rhythm. So that's where I'm going to be at 52. And if I'm over 52, which I think I was a little bit over 52 this year, that's all good too. The second one is tracking my statistics again. I did not, last year was really the first year I didn't do any tracking, even when I wasn't on YouTube. I tracked for a bit, and then last year I just kind of didn't. And I have a number of ways I could track stats. Stats are not my favorite thing in the whole world when it comes to like work or or other things. And my statistics class in college, quite frankly, was one of the worst I had. I was afraid that was going to blow my perfect GPA, but it didn't. I've survived it. But stats are not my thing, and it can be fun, right? So obviously, I can do some things like this that would be fun, and I can make some things happen and that are creative in that way. I can play with this bullet journaling a little bit, which again is a spoiler alert because that's coming up to talk about. I also have a spreadsheet. It's very complex. I got it from, it's free. I got it from a booktuber. I cannot even now recall what her name is, but if I figure that out and remember it, I'll post it. But I know that there's also the ability that I have to create my own spreadsheet and make it not so complicated. But I do want to track certain things about what I'm reading and and kind of just review that at the end of the year and see how it feels and what I wanted more of or less of, or what I really am surprised that I was drawn to, or whatever, just to kind of play with it a little bit. And like I said, I've tracked stats most of the time that I've been kind of focusing on a more intentional reading year. I just didn't feel like doing it last year. Last year was a weird year for me energetically, I would say, in a couple of different ways. Anyway, that's a whole nother video, but tracking those stats. The third one is the Mardi Gras Read-A-Thon. So that was, like I said, an idea that I had a while ago. I wasn't on BookTube. I didn't do it on my own, but I did decide when I came back to BookTube, I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Let's do this. And so I am very excited about that. And I'm in the process of doing some research and trying to get some more prep for filming on that. But I cannot wait to begin that on February 1st. And if you didn't hear about that yet, I'll link the video in the comments below so that you can take a look. And if you'd love to participate with me, that would also be great. I do think that it will be fun. I do think that it will help me reconnect with some of my current subscribers. I may get some new subscribers out of it, although that's not necessarily my motivation. But I do love meeting new people, and I do love celebrating the culture of Mardi Gras, and the way that it can relate to a readathon to me is just fun. So the whole thing has meaning because it's fun. The fourth one is to use my book planner for the whole year. I have to be honest, this is not my favorite. It's okay, and I'm happy with it. I got this Bookstagrammar planner. It has great ratings on Instagram. I mean on Etsy, and honestly, I don't want to rate it because I don't want to mess up her rating scores. But it's very colorful. It has so these are the things that I like about it. It has some really pretty entry pages to the month. It has some note pages, lots of room for book reviews, lots of room for wrap ups, and a little bit of room for hauls. And this is hard for me because it's hard for me to see what I've written in those tiny little things. Photo challenges, I don't need so much. I may change that. Arc planning, I don't really do a whole lot of arc reading or planning, so that isn't so helpful to me. This is useful to me. Content brainstorming is very useful. And then, of course, there's a monthly I think there's a monthly calendar, and then there's a weekly kind of, and that helps me track what I'm doing and what I'm posting and those kinds of things. So it's not terrible. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a 3 or a 2 or a 1 star for me. Definitely between a 4 and a 5. I stuck some Book of the Month Club bookmarks in here because my bookmark container isn't where it used to be. So, yeah, but I do like it. Somebody asked me, here's my current, I have another bookmark there, which I think she sent me. I think I ordered that. It's working. But the other thing is I want to use it. I don't want to have invested in it and to get excited about it and then just let it sit on the shelf. So I want to use it regularly. And I have so far, of course, we're only a couple weeks into the first month of the year. But so far, I have done pretty well with it. The other thing, though, that I want to play with that I hinted at is I want to look at some bullet journaling. I've been watching some booktubers who are bullet journaling. I've always wanted to do some bullet journaling around books. I started to do that a while ago. I got really hung up on the fact that I'm not a great artist, and I wasn't designing in a way that was at all kind of exciting to me, and I just gave it up. It was years ago that I did this. And so I have a more traditional bullet journal that I could go back to and start again. I do have this. I have 3 of these. So if I were to fill this up, I could, so I could be looking at some bullet journaling in here. But I also want this to be dedicated kind of solely to the BookTube channel in terms of research notes, in terms of, ideas. I mean, I can put content ideas in there too, but I mean, just like, I feel like this would be more suited for me anyway. It would be more suited for, like, for instance, the other day I listened to a library talk and I took notes on the library talk. The author was Dana K. White, and she writes books about decluttering. And I put a couple of little stickers in there, but essentially I just wanted this to write. I didn't want it to be neat and pretty or whatever. I mean, this I made obviously a little bit prettier today, but I cut those tickets out the other night and I wanted to use them. But I think that this could just be a kind of creative way, but also a way to contain most of my booktube stuff, but maybe more of my stats tracking could happen in the bullet journal. And I might end up starting the bullet journal and then not doing another thing again in it for a long, long time. So we'll see what happens, but I have one. It might be fun to try and not to put a lot of pressure on myself, and a creative outlet. So that's kind of the why, a creative outlet, because it's just calling me for some reason. So I'm going to listen and see what it says. The next goal is to read more on my backlist. And I pretty much say this every year, and I haven't really done a good job of that in the last couple of years because shiny new books keep coming into my space and I want to read them. And I do get book of the month, which obviously is a new book every month for me. And I do try to keep up with those, although I am not completely current. And I use Libro.fm for an audio book. I did put that on pause because I have some credits backed up a little bit, but those are typically books that I don't already own as well, like, because I wouldn't buy an audiobook of something that I already own, unless that's not true. I did do that with the Diana Gabaldon series, so there's hard copies and audios, but other than that, it's not something I do very often, and I've already purchased all of them. I really want to read more on my backlist because I have a lot of books and I have invested in those books. And there are some that I probably could and would on haul once I read them because they are either little free library copies or, they're not something that I plan to read again. But I'm going to be really more intentional about what I buy and what I collect and why. Why would I want to have that book as a physical copy? So it's kind of a dual goal, but reading more of the backlist will make me feel better about myself. I'm not going to say I'm going to read 50% of my backlist. I'm not going to get that specific at this point, but I am kind of playing with, like, how many of those would that be for me a month, and what constitutes a backlist for me, just to be clear, like I needed to put a parameter around that too, is essentially anything that's not purchased in this year. Because if I bought it last year, it's on the backlist. It didn't get read, right? And so I am really, it doesn't have to be that I put it on the list 10 years ago or bought it 10 years ago. It just has to be something that I didn't buy this year. That's my rule for myself. Sticking to it. This one's fun, and I can get it done in the first couple of months of the year. So it's a spoiler alert too. There'll be a video coming very soon, but my daughter, Megan, and I were talking the other night on the phone, and she said, I'm going to do a fun little thing before the wedding. Her wedding is at the end of March. And she said, I'm going to read something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue every month from now until we get married at the end of March. So for 3 months. And I jumped on that and said, oh my God, I love that so much. And I want to do it too. We could do a video and we could do it together and we could talk about it. And so that's what we're going to do. So spoiler alert, and I cannot wait. And so I'm already about finished with those prompts for January, and it's been a great little fun thing to start. And I'll accomplish this very quickly in the year because I'll be done by the first quarter, right? Another thing I really want to do with Megan is something we've talked about for years and haven't done. And that is a little free library sort of hunt in New Orleans, in the New Orleans kind of metro area. There are a lot of little free libraries. They do kind of come and go. There was one I really wanted to visit, and I kept driving by it with her when we would go somewhere. I can't even remember. And we never stopped. We'd always say, oh, and it's kind of like New Orleans driving wise, you can't always just stop, right? So you have to be really, really strategic about this too, because you have to find a place to park depending on where they are. And so that can be tricky. But we're going to try to do this, probably not till after the wedding for this one, but and maybe not in the middle of the heat of the summer. But it probably will be summer, to be quite honest, because she's an elementary school teacher, and that's the best timing when she's out of school, obviously. But that's something that I really want to put back on the list and get and complete it this year. And it's one that we could do over and over again, right? And we could even do one where I live now, which I haven't even explored those either. But I think we should start with the one that originated the idea. This one is big. It's big, feels big, requires big help, requires it requires some money. Some we've already, some of the things we already acquired, but and that is the new bookcases. And they are going to be built-in bookcases that we're going to make ourselves. We had a guy do the ones in the old house, and they were fine. And my son is completely capable, and Lisa is completely capable of creating and installing these. In addition to the bookcases, we're going to hang the television, and then there will be a mantle and a fireplace. We purchased an electric fireplace. I know I would really love to have a real fireplace, but let me tell you, there's two reasons why that's not really needed. One is that they are super expensive, and two is that we would have to run a gas line to that wall, which we have gas in the house for some things, but we'd have to have that run. We don't really need a lot of heat where we live because we live in the South. The electric one does give off some heat, so that will, that'll be welcomed, obviously, if we need that, but we really don't. That's not it's more of an aesthetic. And we looked at some, and the aesthetic is really fine. We actually looked at homes over the years when we've been looking that had them already, but this one did not. But it also has a giant wall. Probably vlog that once we get started, but we actually have to have another outlet installed. And so I've reached out today we've kind of just put this off till the new year, but I reached out today to a friend of ours who has an electrical company, and we have some other electrical stuff we need to tend to. That'll be the first step. And then Lisa has drawn it out and designed it. So she just needs to get with our son, Matt, to, really work that through. And then he can build it at his own house and bring it in. Like, there's lots of ways in which this can be easy for all of us. So bookcases and a fireplace. And then I'll probably film in front of that space from now until the end of time. I want my book babies out of the boxes, and I think they want to be out of the boxes too. All right, the next one is to read more nonfiction. This comes up on almost every list of mine, and I haven't even done the tracking for last year yet, so I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty confident that I didn't necessarily read more than the year before, but I did read some nonfiction. I have a lot of nonfiction. Like, a lot of my books that are not in boxes are in my office that are nonfiction, that are work related. There's some of those that I just have never read. I bright, shiny nonfiction object, right? I just ordered them, and somebody said, "Oh, this is a great book." Yeah, okay, I'm gonna get that. Never read it. So I need to be intentional about those too. And then I have a lot that are really calling me, that are around, like the Eric Larsons. I really love the Eric Larsons, and I want to get to more of those. There's one that I'm not going to tell you about because it's a surprise, but there's another one that I want to get to that I've never read. I have one about Kennedy and his rise to being president that I have had for years and not read. That one is still calling to me. And I'd love to read one of these years, I'd love to read Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin, which is like about Abe Lincoln and his challenges when the country was so divided and the Civil War was happening. And, that was I mean, how do you stop a civil war? That was a great feat. So for him to, marshal the end of that, and to create peace again in our nation was quite a feat. And so, how did he do that? I would love to know. Those are just a couple of examples. I don't know what I'm going to read this year, but I would like to read more nonfiction because I think sometimes, and especially last year, I got super caught up in the thrillers and the mysteries, super, super drawn to those. And there's nothing wrong with it. It just sometimes gets a little, I just get in a rut and they're fast, and I'm like, oh, let's just do this. Nonfiction is not always fast for me. So there's that. I need to really consider that. And sometimes that's audio works better for me than physical copy. One more. I don't know that this is the best that I saved for last, but it is one more. And in terms of time, this will probably be the last one that I complete, and that is to bring back the Christmas or the Advent book exchange. Megan and I have talked about that too. We loved it. I love watching other people do it. It was just one of the funnest things I had ever done. Will we do 25 books again? I don't know. We need to stop and talk about the parameters of that because maybe 2 a week would be fine. Maybe 3 a week would be fine. I really did enjoy that. And when you do 25, that's a big hit on the space scene, right? Like for my new bookshelves would be maybe groaning by then. I don't know. We'll see. I may end up with way more room than I need once this is all said and done. But she has, limited space. And Megan doesn't hold on to books like I do, which is good. I guess she's breaking the cycle because, yeah, that was a family trait for sure. Anyway, Christmas book exchange. And in addition to that, one more thing, let me get a little water. In addition to that, I also have seen, and lots of my friends have tagged me in them, these ornaments that people make, those clear, pretty good sized ornaments that you take the top off and you can fill them with whatever you want. People are making tiny little books, from printed images from the internet, and they're putting these little tiny books that they've created inside of the ornament, and they just look so adorable. And I would like to try one and see if I enjoy making it. And if I do, I could make one every year, and I could go back and make one for the last few years. It would be it would be a lot of work, but maybe not. I mean, I've never made one, so maybe it's just super easy and super fast. But I do plan to make one for 2022, so I can do that at any time that I'm ready, right? And then we'll see if it's enjoyable, then I'll do it for 2023. And if I do find it enjoyable and I do it soon enough, then I can start ahead for 2023, so I'm not at the end of the year kind of scrambling to get it done. So that is my 10 2023 reading goals. I do not have 23 goals in 2023. That's way too many for me. I have some different things I want to do this year. And we, of course, have a wedding coming up and some other stuff. So 10 is good. 10 was plenty. I couldn't even think really of more than 10. There were a couple more, and I can still certainly include them, but they're not necessarily goals. The others that I thought about, they were just, I don't know, like things that I might want to do. They weren't really calling me forward, and they didn't have as significant of a meaningful why to them. So that's why these got chosen. I would love to hear about what your 2023 reading goals are, if you have any. I am like watching a lot of those videos in the last few weeks, just kind of, getting excited about what other people are doing. I'm happy with this. It feels good. It feels right. I love my little notebook to keep them in and my little tickets, and everything is good. So I'll pop a picture of these in the end, photos, and I'll pop some things in the comments. I'll list them out in the comments so you can see them if you want to, kind of think about them for yourself. But again, I think that this is going to be a good year. I really have a good feeling about this reading year. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for your comments, your likes, your views. For those of you who've come back as subscribers, I'm so delighted to see you. And those of you who are new, I'm delighted to see you too. I hope that you will continue to watch, share content that you want to see with me. I'm open to whatever. And as always, happy reading. Bye.